Hey everybody, I'm Bob Moore. I'm here with Randy Wiemer as technical director at Edgile. Randy's been in this business for decades and has some insights on some of the chaotic activity that happens in a ransomware attack and how we might be able to address that. So Randy, thanks for talking to me for a few minutes.
Sure, Bob. Good to be here.
Would you, just give us a little background on what you saw and then some of your early thinking?
Okay, so I've been a security consultant now for about 15 years. And so mostly what we do is implement projects for customers to kind of harden their network and improve their identity access management security practices. But recently I was involved in a client that was recovering from a ransomware attack. And this was sort of an eye opener for me that this is catastrophic. This could kill a business. And the challenge of recovering from ransomware, as I've now come to understand, is a bit different than the classic kind of DR that we've long prepared for, where there's a fire in the data center or a server hardware failed and we have to recover that server. When these ransomware attacks compromise an Active Directory and take it totally off your network, it's a game changer. You can't just restore from backup, because if you just restore from your backup, it's likely that you made that backup after the attacker compromised your network. So you restore your AD and the attacker's back the next day, locking your servers up again, encrypting everything. So recovering from ransomware turns out to be a harder problem than just a straightforward DR fire in the data center. And that was an eye opener for me.
Yeah, Randy, being the marketing guy that I am, you asked two questions I thought were really poignant and would get the attention of anybody that's trying to defend against this. And would you mind sharing those two questions now?
Sure. So anticipating that you might be a victim, a couple questions you need to ask is how, could your team recover from a full-on outage of your Active Directory forest? Could they even restore it? Okay. And if they claim they can restore it, how long would it take them? Is this something they can accomplish in a day, or is it going to take them a week or a month? Because that's a difference maker. If your business is down while you're recovering, and the other aspect of that is, and have they recovered to a point before the breach? That's another tricky problem.
So Randy, you're an AD expert, and so you're watching this happen, and then started to think. I think you told me that it really didn't interest you before until you started to think about what's a process that an organization can defend against this by hardening, but then also exercising some kind of recovery plan so they can answer, especially that second question of how fast can they do it? Because
Yeah,
the board and the C-levels are going to want to know that.
for the last decade, most of our projects have involved migrating away from an Active Directory, turning on cloud services, and how do we shift workloads and move things out of the data center into the cloud. But the reality is, that's a great strategy, but none of these companies we assist are ever in a position to shut down all the old stuff. There's still critical business dependencies on it. And watching this recovery process, because I wasn't responsible for it, I was just contributing to this recovery process, but it was a game changer for me. It was a real eye opener. Just the idea that most organizations, their management of their backup media depends on their AD. They're storing the backups on tape or on file systems whose access is controlled by logging into Active Directory credentials. And if the attacker has taken your AD out, you can't even reach that backup media because you can't log into those services. So one of the key differentiators is to be in a position to recover from ransomware that takes out an Active Directory. You have to manage your backup media and store it in locations that don't require AD credentials to reach. And I just, reviewing the clients I've worked with, very, very few of them will have addressed that particular problem. That will be a new way of approaching this that most of them have not dealt with, haven't faced up to. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to go out and help these clients improve these processes.
So, you talk about processes, but there are products on the market, and aren't there backup products, and is a product alone?
Yeah. So there's kind of two options for backup and recovery of an Active Directory. One is the components built into Windows, the system state backup and recovery process. And in the Microsoft literature, Microsoft would view that is sufficient. Okay, just use system state backup restore. And if you've rehearsed it and you're good at it, I suspect it's true. You can be successful with the Microsoft system state backup. But third-party products are often in play, and they offer some more sophisticated capabilities. For example, system state backup and recovery, you're restoring the binaries on the Windows server, the domain controller. And if the attacker has compromised those binaries, then when you restore, you're restoring it to a state that's still compromised. Whereas some of the products that will assist in managing a backup and recovery, they offer the ability to restore just the data in the Active Directory and not the binaries off the Windows server. So you get to build a new server from known good media. You know that server's not compromised. You turn it into a new domain controller, and then you restore the data in that domain controller, which could introduce a risk because the attacker could have left backdoor accounts that are part of your restored data. So, often the very first step after you restored is change all the passwords. And, that's a critical step. But think about the business impact of changing everyone's password. They can't reach their mailbox. You have the problem now of how do you communicate to all these people that they have a new password and that they must change it on next use. When your VPN and all of the services that they rely on to go change it are not yet recovered. So it's a major ordeal to recover from this kind of an attack. We have a colleague, Bob, who was part of a large organization a few years ago who suffered this. He says it took them more than a year to really recover. They were not business as usual for at least 12 months after this kind of an attack.
So it sounds to me, Randy, that some type of a backup system is important in recovery, but it's the processes that you're talking about that really need to be defined and maybe exercised, like a plan of rebuild
and rehearsed.
Prior. Right.
A lot of orgs have a discipline of rehearsing some form of recovery. Often it's once a year, and if the circumstances that they're trying to recover from are things like a server failure or a fire in a data center, then that process is insufficient for an attack that takes out every domain controller in a global forest, for example. So it's a big deal, and this company that I was involved in, they're a big company. They're a global business, $30 billion a year in revenue. So if it impacts them in this way, it impacts every org in a similar way.
So what do you think, Randy, about just like cost pressure this year, CFOs providing pressure on?
Yeah, to the other point, which is, I see so many of our clients with shelfware. They're buying all kinds of security products and technologies that they're unable to find skilled staffing or dedicated enough labor to it to actually get full value out of all of these products. And going back to my operational days, the answer is never buy another product. The answer is just follow best practices and do more with what is inherently part of all of the tech stack. So, buying more security tools is, if anything, a counterproductive approach. It's simplify, reduce, measure your attack surface, and make sure that you're not doing foolish things.
So how does that relate to Microsoft, what Microsoft's built in the E5 platform?
Yeah, nearly all global Fortune 1000 kind of businesses are heavily dependent on the Microsoft stack and services. And there's enough capability in the Microsoft portfolio to address the vast majority of customers' security requirements and ambitions. It's just a matter of using it. So turn it on, read the Microsoft documentation, follow their recommendations and best practices, and you're going to struggle to do better than that by stitching together a collection of diverse products. Mm-hmm. That's just too hard.
Especially with labor shortages now and pressure on staff.
The skill level required to do this stuff effectively is unfortunately pretty high.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'd love it if we could just go hire anybody who looks qualified and have them be successful at doing this work. Unfortunately, it takes some experience and some skill to be effective in this space.
Right. How about the automation that comes? You hear best of suite, best of breed, but with Microsoft's 365 E5 platform, it's not just best of suite, right? There's automations, integrations across the platform that also tie into Azure and the intelligent security graph.
Yeah, Microsoft has a competitive advantage because of their scale. Just in their security business, they dwarf every other vendor that's in the security space in terms of annual revenue, which drives their ability to spend and invest. Okay, and as a CISO, Bob, that you and I did business for and continue to, his view was he'd rather spend $1 that would be amplified by all the dollars all of Microsoft's other customers are spending. That's how he is taking his budget and getting the most out of it. Is if he buys into this system, then he's benefiting from all of the other buyers. And in the Microsoft machine learning, artificial intelligence world, all the signals and the analysis and the machine learning that Microsoft's bringing to bear on the security problem. So nobody else can touch it.
So it seems like, Randy, that maybe the confluence of economic pressure, to reduce cost and staff reductions, and the capability that a lot of the companies own already in this Microsoft 365 platform, just haven't deployed it, might be the time that they take another look at this, or CFOs come in and say, no, it's time to take advantage of what we have and let's streamline.
Yeah, I doubt, if the economy stalls or takes a downturn, finding new dollars to buy and license new tools should not be anybody's priority. It's in all likelihood, every org, especially any org using Azure AD and Office 365, they're likely to already own a whole set of capabilities that, if they would just use them effectively, would do more to improve their security posture than anything else. Do that first. Okay. If you still think there's a gap, then maybe look at a product. But before buying more products, just go take advantage of the capabilities that are there.
So Randy, tell me about the two-step process that you put together and that we're going to bring out as a service to our clients.
So you know, the best thing an organization can do is keep it from happening. You don't want this to happen. So let's change how you approach the management of AD so that it's following all the best practices and is as hardened as possible. Is that a guarantee? Absolutely not. But let's make it much, much harder for the attacker to compromise and take out your AD. But let's also recognize that it could happen. So let's be prepared to deal with it should it happen to you. Let's get a solid recovery, backup and recovery process in place. Let's rehearse it and demonstrate that it will work. And that should happen first. And followed by let's improve and harden the way this stuff is delivered.
And the way you outlined it, you're not talking about months, you're talking about a series of weeks, maybe a couple months to do this type of work.
Double or single digit weeks.
It
should be sufficient for just about any org. Now, certainly an org that operates in 100 countries and has hundreds of domain controllers, it's a harder problem than a company that operates in fewer or has fewer Active Directory forests and domains to deal with. So it's a sliding scale, but hopefully every organization is already doing part of what's needed, and it's just an incremental improvement.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Randy. I really appreciate that. I wanted to share that with our company and with our clients and generally that those two questions, how confident are you that your team can recover from a ransomware attack that shuts down your AD? And if you are confident, how fast can they do it? Those two questions probably are very hard to answer for many companies, and we'd like to help you answer those questions. So if you're interested, please follow up with us, and we'll get you on a call with Randy, and we'll explain the process to you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.